Welcome everybody to Calling the Audible Division C edition. We are in week 2 here. My name is Justin Blanchard. Joining me, as always, GM Colethris.
I am always GM
Doing behind the scenes work for us over here at the Eagle at Master Control. And it's
that kind of high tech.
yeah. And a couple guests over here. Just kind of chilling in the back. What do you think is Mo doing? You watching sports over there? What do you got?
We read
Manchester United news.
Old Trafford.
For the Liverpool fan, Mokan. And Mr. Hollock over here, just taking a stand. Taking a stand, no more. He's imagining all the different things that could be going on this green screen behind us. I don't know what it is right now. Is it just green right now, Ego? What do you got?
It's Papineau.
It's Papineau. All right, that's cool. That works. So it's like we're at Papineau, but we're not actually at Papineau.
Whereas last week we were at Papineau, but weren't really at Papineau.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, right now we are in Rob's parents' garage.
FPF Studios.
Can we call it FPF Studios, please?
Rob's parents' garage?
FPF Studios.
All right. With that, we will get right into it. Looking back very quickly, the recap's here to start. MVE taking on NoName. MVE taking it 14-7 in what was an ugly game. I unfortunately had to witness a part of this game. What is your immediate reaction to this result?
It's a surprisingly low score for MVE, firstly. But yes, this would definitely chalk up on games that would be understandably difficult to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it was 6-0 at halftime on an early TD. I think it was to Vincent Lauzon down in the red zone. Otherwise, it was just completely struggling offenses
I
on both sides.
Mentioned the weapons that MVE have, which is why I feel that it's kind of surprising to only see them put up this many points against a struggling. NoName.
I mean, you know, from taking a look at it and what my sources were saying in terms of people who have more experience seeing this team play, and it's true, it just seems like Gab Cote just doesn't look to Jovan Kober as often as you would expect that he would. I mean, you know, he has a great player in Foucault. Vincent Lauzon is also, you know, a very good receiver. He had a bit. You want to get in here, Mo?
Yeah, I score kept that game, MVE against NoName. 2 things of note: Gab Cote exploded, allowing NoName to come back in the game. But I think for NoName, they have and you guys talked about it last week, they have a serious problem at quarterback. Unfortunately, as much as I like him, Yannick Dawson is not the solution to their problem at quarterback. And at one point, he was 4 of 19 for about 40 yards net after his sack totals. Did not play well.
Thank you, Mo. That was essentially what I was getting to next, which is, you know, Yannick Dawson clearly not the answer at quarterback. Is there anyone on this roster who is? Do NoName look outside? Do they really go 10 games with Yannick Dawson at quarterback?
It all comes down to, I guess, the internal chemistry. How hurt is Yannick Dawson? Even at full strength, can he compete in a very deep Division C at this point? I don't know if there's anyone who would be able to step up from within on that squad to do a better or comparable job. I think that the idea would be to either look to Division D, look to someone who's not playing currently. I know the chatter was around Doug McKernan before Doug was unable to commit, but maybe find someone of that caliber to put up those numbers.
Well, I mean, interestingly enough, right, the other players with quarterback ratings on this team, you have Jared Beausoleil at 58 and Jonathan Grizzly at 68. 0 games played. I don't know what exactly it is that went wrong in terms of the roster for this team. That is a very notable absence. You know, do you try to bring him in? Do you try to bring Grizzly back and have him go quarterback? I mean, there's no way they're going to go 10 games with Yannick.
Grizzly is at this point absolutely a better option at quarterback than Yan Dawson, but as we've seen in seasons past, even with that, it doesn't look like John Grizzly is the answer either. Like that's a band-aid to a symptom rather than the problem. Find someone who fits well with these characters, who will be able to distribute the ball effectively and just will keep them in games.
You think they miss Mike Rowe right now? Is that something, huh?
Like retrospect is 2020.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. Listen, we'll get to his team in a bit here. Real quickly for MVE, 20 points in 2 games. not a hot start at all for a roster that's been, they've been around for a while.
And I mentioned the weapons that are on this team. As I reflected on this a little bit, when you're up against a quarterback who's struggling to get those completions as well, the time clock just runs and it runs and it runs. So it's understandable that MVE probably spent the majority of this game on defense waiting for plays to happen. But yeah, it comes down to circumstances. They struggled week one. They were really slow out of the gate, but they do need to put up these points.
And speaking of a lot of points here, teams putting up big points. The commission, a respectable 33 points over Junkyard Dogs is 18. From what I understand, it was really more a matter of Junkyard Dogs just playing terribly from start to finish. Offense, defense, Rossi, the quarterback, especially having some difficulty here. And defensively, just some miscues, just allowing, making it real easy for Sean Avram to move the ball up and down the field. Of note, Avram bringing in Jason Prince, and obviously this roster is filled with players that he has a lot of good familiarity with. The first pass going to Prince the snapper. He caught 4 more of those for 51 yards receiving. And essentially, listen, it was pretty easy for the commission, an early, taking the lead early and just never looking back. What are you more impressed with at this point in the season? Granted, it's still very early, but interesting to note for the commission. Sean Avram lighting it up, 12 TDs so far. That's got to be, I'm assuming that's up there, if not leading the division. And then defensively, listen, 6 INTs, 7 PDs, and 1 sack for this defense. What are you more impressed with at this point in the season?
I think that it's not what am I more impressed with of the two. It's that they've been able to provide the two together. In seasons past, you have seasons where the commission were the best defense in all of Division C, but struggled offensively. You have seasons where they're strong offensively, but can't stop anyone. And there's seasons where they've been poor at both of those. This is a season where they're top of the division, top of their game, and they have roster pieces that fit really, really well. So I think it's the fact that it's impressive to me that they're doing both of these at once.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I think to add to that is the fact that they're not exactly doing it against chump teams. This isn't a new team coming in from Division E trying to make a step up. This is Jaegerbomb and Junkyard Dogs, 2 teams who have experience in the playoffs, who've made it to the playoffs. One of them, especially in particular, Jaegerbomb, having a lot of success in the playoffs, having gone to the finals last year. Honestly, it's just amazing to me what they're doing so far. It's more a question of, is this something that will last? I guess we'll see that going forward. Is that, do you expect it to last?
I expect it to last, absolutely. Like if you look at the teams in Division C, they're definitely in the top 3 or top 5, so it's gonna last. They will face competition, and it's only a matter of how the commission will do up against the top teams, because we know already how they'll do against middle of the pack teams or weaker teams.
Yeah.
They're very well built for this division right now.
Yeah, definitely. Another team that is also very well built at this point. They are that's it. Like, I've fallen in love. Impeccable D. 38 points up on Friends in Low Places, 19. Listen, we had talked about it last week, right? We mentioned Ryan Aridi rushing.
And they didn't even need him to
No,
rush
that's the point. You want to jump in
You've
here?
fallen in love with Impeccable D.
You got it. That is exactly what I was getting. I was just waiting for a reaction back here. Listen, their D is very impeccable. But more important, I'm telling you, offensively, it's insane what the Aridis have been doing so far. Ryan and Jad combining for 12 catches, 150 yards, and 3 TDs. It's like, if you try to take Ryan away deep, Jad's just going to eat you up alive underneath. You try to, you put your guys forward up on Jad short, and then Ryan just going to make the catches over top. They're
not to mention Jeff Rosenblatt, shifty in the pocket now, coming back from injury.
Yeah. A new and improved Rosenblatt here, it seems.
I don't know who he paid what to reconstruct him so well, but it's obviously worked.
Yeah. Rosenblatt, 10 TDs, 0 INTs so far through 2 weeks. Is it too early here to kind of predict Rosenblatt to be in the running for QB of the year?
So I'd like to see him up against some of the stronger defenses in Division C currently. He played up against a Royals team which can put up a lot of points on offense, but have struggled to make stops, even against a Bearskins team who are missing Sasha and Marco. And now he's played against a team who has 60 points in cap space that have moved up from 5B.
Yeah, and we're missing one of the key guys in Kevin Smoota, we should mention. Yeah. But nonetheless, I don't want to take away too much from what Impeccable D have done so far. But I have to say,
without a doubt,
very impressive.
They have pieces in all the right places. Dan Farag, Kev Bustani, guys who
That's
who
it.
fly
That's
under
yeah.
the
We
radar,
didn't
but
even
make
mention
those plays whenever you need them to. In addition to what you said with Jad cutting up short and Ryan being the deep threat on this team.
Yeah. Just a very quick note going back to the defensive side. Marty Friedman, very effective rushing, holding Danny Demore to 4 yards on 1 rush. Really stepping up here in this game and showing that you don't necessarily need Ryan or Reedy to rush. I mean, they have there's a lot of athleticism on this team regardless. I mean, obviously the Reedies are the bigger names, the flashier names, but this is a solid roster, and I definitely expect to see this team do well moving forward. Very quickly for friends in low places here so far, they have the one big win and now they have the one big loss. It seems like it's still early, but I mean, I don't know what to think of this team at this point in the season.
Give it time. We've mentioned that they're a team that have moved up and are taking this challenge. Danny's really trying to take the step up at quarterback and looks like a decently natural quarterback for someone who doesn't give you that appearance. You saw him aside from the friends in low places, the previous finals where he would fill in, he'd throw a couple passes that were errant, and he was more dominant as a receiver and a defender, whereas now he's really starting to dictate the pace of the game as a quarterback. It is early to tell, but they have very winnable games coming up, but they will be they're competitive games, so you need to see how Danny will do against adversity.
So very quickly, your quick gut feeling on them, you are more favorable than non-favorable if
Absolutely.
you're going forward.
I think that even if they were to finish, say, with a 5-5 record or a 6-4 record, that's a huge success for a team like this. Absolutely huge.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And that will do it for the recaps. We will move right along to our segment here, bringing it back this season after much success last season. I actually have no idea how successful it was last season. Listen, we enjoy
We're bringing it back minus the stupidity.
Yeah, exactly. So we're just going to go...
Where's the fun in that if there's no stupidity?
Well, listen, easier work.
We're using it as a transition topic to talk about the thing that we want to talk about, using you as the segment.
Yeah.
The segue.
So
That's
basically,
all it really
all that's changing is that the entertainment remains for us. You know what I mean? And there's less for you. So it's all good in the end.
Woo!
Yeah. So Eagle thinks coming back this season. If you didn't watch our show last season, essentially it's pretty simple. We're gonna ask Eagle a question. It doesn't matter what the actual answer to the question is, only what Eagle thinks is the answer, and that is what GM and I will try to guess on. So the question this week, very simply, Eagle, what do you think is the number of winless teams at this point in the season in Division C?
How many teams in C?
There are 19, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So we're going to give Eagle a quick second here to think about that. 9 and 9. Yes, 18 teams. Eagle here calculating in his head.
I got a number.
Eagle has a number. So I'm going to kick it off with 2.
Give me 4 and under.
4 and under? I will... Yeah, I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay.
I think... So that's it. So if Eagle's answer is 4 or below, GM gets the W. If it is 5 or higher, I get the W. Eagle, what's your answer?
Cinque.
Hey, right on the money, baby.
He's also right.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. So 5 winless teams here.
For the record, I don't actually know the question or the answer ahead
Yeah,
of the
I literally just block it off completely from the from the script.
And I was hoping, because last season when we did this, it was like a ridiculously high number.
Yeah.
So I figured Alex would veer towards the opposite end of that.
Not today. Not today. Notch one up for Jay Blanche over here. So that's it. So the topic this week is winless teams, and which winless team is who we thought they were, and which is one that may surprise us, I guess, going forward. So GM, who is your lock, if you will, to turn things around by the end of the season?
I like Red Wave a lot at this point. More than anything, it looks like it comes down to an issue of chemistry. Speaking from experience, there's times where you take individual players who are really, really good and you put them onto a team together and they excel. And there's instances where it takes some time. And unfortunately for Red Wave, this is one of those instances. That being said, Mario is a great quarterback. The Moses brothers, Jeremy Anderson, I've mentioned the role players, Matt Barsetti, Chris Olsen. This team is stacked enough that once they start to get their rhythm, they're going to look really, really good. I don't think it's going to be very long that it's going to take them to find this pace. But once they do find the pace, it's going to be funny that we looked upon them as a winless team that were potentially in that running for doing poorly.
Yeah, no, listen, those are good points. Very quickly for Red Wave here, coming up, Impeccable D, Friends in Low Places, and MVE before taking on Smash Bros. In Week 6. It's going to be tough. I mean, aside from, I give them a decent chance, I guess, versus Friends in Low Places and MVE. I don't know. I still have, I want to believe that it'll work out for them. For the points that you mentioned, it's just, listen, so far it just seems like Mario Pareka is either, it's either like inconsistent where he's okay, or inconsistent where he's just playing poorly. And for me, that's where I think I'm going to call him out, I guess.
Okay.
It seems like he's, with this roster, I think I mentioned in Week 1, with this roster, with this talent, you have the Moses brothers and Jeremy Anderson, just to name a few. That's honestly in Division C, that three or four good guys should be enough for your quarterback to make plays. And I went back and checked real quick, and I thought it was interesting is that, listen, after his big week in Division B in Week 1, he came back versus Simon's lightweight this week. And listen, 12 of 28, 113 yards, 3 TDs, 2 INTs. Let me get to the good part here. He was throwing to Jeremy Anderson, Travis Moses, Kenneth Mitchell, who is a beast player from Blue Chips.
Blue Chips, yeah.
Timothy Godber, and Pat Chenard. Listen, to me, it just boggles my mind how you can literally only get 3 TDs and barely 100 yards.
So what you're saying is that this team was Mario Pareka, built with a bunch of individuals who do really well on their respective teams, but put onto this team struggled with chemistry.
Listen, I understand where you're coming from. I still think that there's a minimum, I guess, if you will, for what a quarterback should come in and be able to do. Granted, fine, the lack of chemistry to me, it'll be the difference between whatever, a TD or 2, right? But there's a minimum, I think, of what you need to be able to do. And if you're Division B quarterback, you have that roster, and you're coming down in Division C, you need to be doing more than what he's produced so far. So I'm gonna reserve a little bit, I guess. I think before coming, agreeing 100% with you.
I don't think that all hope is lost. So this is why, of those 4
for sure,
teams,
yeah, no, of course, for sure. Switching gears here a little bit, my winless lock to continue being winless, I'm sorry to say, is Going Deep. We had mentioned in Week 1 how the big talk was about Pat Wright here at quarterback, and how we didn't think that he could, that Division C was maybe a bit too much for him at this stage. And I think that this loss that they just
for the record, he was MIA this week. It was
yes, it was, and we're coming up to my point here because they got demolished. Okay, I saw part of this. Blue Chips are a great team, but no team should be able to do what they did Going Deep this week, and that's the point I'm getting to, is that it's not just Pat Wright here, but the roster as a whole, I think, is really lacking in terms of veteran players, in terms of athleticism, athletic wise, being able to compete at this level. Listen, they have their top rated player is Charles Bergeron, who his last strong season was back in winter 2013 when he had 29 catches, 293 yards, 11 TDs. Since then, not much doing offensively. And to add to that, to add insult to injury, in his 2 games played this season, he has 0 stats on offense. So if your top-rated player offensively, who has shown he can make plays, isn't doing anything, I don't know if he's not playing on offense. I don't know if just not getting the ball to him. But listen, it's not working out, I don't think, for Going Deep at this point in the season.
And I think Monet had 5 interceptions in that game.
That is correct.
I think 2 of them were on him. The other 3 were on the receivers, in and out of hands, tip balls.
But that's it.
Return for scores, too, so no one came back to protect the ball.
What I find is interesting is that Matt Beaubonnier-Moret, on his own team, so on the Punisher when they played in Division C, whenever he's quarterbacking his own team, does fantastically. In this instance, for Going Deep, he subbed for me on Solid a couple of years back. He subbed for Peas. Whenever he subs for another team, he does poorly, but he's an established quarterback in his own right, so it's interesting to see that disconnect.
Yeah.
That being said, we mentioned Enrico Pierre Week 1 as being absent from this roster and being like a key addition that you said, a veteran, athleticism, contributes on both sides of the ball. aside from that, like Bayard-Géant asked him, like, if you can bring down someone from the Gladiator who'd be a difference maker on this team, Nguimier, Frank Lebeau,
because I'm guaranteed that they have the room. I guarantee that they have room to bring someone down.
Alex Lever, even
honestly, just anyone at this point that they feel that they can count on, because when you're looking at it, this is honestly essentially the Blue Devils roster that went 2-8 in Division 5A in winter and is now trying to compete in Division C. Listen, granted, it was Matt in at quarterback this week, but from what I saw offensively and defensively, I have big doubts, especially when it comes to a remaining schedule that features Show Me Your TDs, The Commission, Backyard Bullies, Jaegerbomb, among others. It's going to be an uphill battle for them.
Eagle's in contact with the Riot himself, so I think that hopefully our sort of criticisms or opinions.
Listen, we don't want anyone to go to finish 0-10. We want to see teams do well. We want to see some parity a little bit. So that's by all means, please prove us wrong. Please prove us wrong. And all the better if you do it against one of the big name teams that you have coming up next. GM, your winless lock to continue being as such.
It's low hanging fruit at this point in saying NoName. So I figured that while on paper they're my lock to continue winless, I think that if all things remain the same, if Jan Dawson is still a quarterback, I touched upon it that like MVE spent most of the time on defense. If you're going forward with this roster, milk the clock. Take as much time as you can in the huddle for as often as possible, minimize turnovers, and try to make it as low scoring a game as possible. Mo mentioned that MVE almost let NoName back into this game. Use that to your advantage, because right now, the way things are looking, it doesn't look good. And it's like I said, it's easy for me to say NoName are my team to go 0-10 right now. So
have we confirmed Dawson's injured? Is that like a true statement, or where are we at with
I haven't gotten it confirmed.
It's cool to give him the benefit of the like right now. I'm even at the point where I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt of being injured as a way to write this off right now. So if he's not injured, it's an even bigger problem.
Yeah, that's true. Listen, I'm not gonna harp on them. I'm not gonna necessarily kick them while they're down here. We already, I think we said what we had to say about NoName.
Plus, you already let loose on going deep anyway.
That's true. I'm not gonna do that twice in one show. But yeah, I mean, just to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, I think just go basic. Do a drive. Honestly, just run all hooks. Literally, just do all hooks for a drive and just march up the field, little by little, and that's really it. I mean, go from there. It's not a matter of needing big plays. It's not a matter of you need to get something going.
Maybe set up a scrimmage or like practices during the week.
Listen, whatever it is. Otherwise, go make a switch. Put Yannick another position and go do what you feel you need to do in order to get this team competitive. Because otherwise, it just sucks to have a lost season. When it's not
it's salvageable.
Yeah, exactly. It's not an injury. It's not no one's well, granted, perhaps it is, but it's not an injury where he's gone for the season type of deal. You know what I mean? So no, there's hope yet for NoName, but admittedly very little, I think is fair to say here.
And your team to turn it around?
Yeah, and honestly, I think it's the easiest of the two left between Home for the Hollandais, which seems hopeless at this point, and Jaegerbomb. I'm definitely going to go with Jaegerbomb. Listen, they had arguably the toughest first two games of any team in the season, having played against Backyard Bullies, and then they got blown out in week 1. I am forgetting. Was the Commission.
The Commission.
Exactly, yeah. So they had the Commission blow them out, and then they come back and play Backyard Bullies to a tight 29-26
So
game.
basically, yes, like you said, the toughest start. Hypothetically, the top team in Conference A and the top team in Conference B.
Exactly, right. And I mean, granted, you can come back and say, well, it was a blowout in week 1. Okay, but it was also week 1. I will kind of let that slide a little bit, given the fact that they're coming off of honestly a really tough loss in the finals, and the Commission really are no joke at all this season.
And that being said, like going 0-2 and facing these teams, they've been close games, and it's not altogether a bad thing for Jaegerbomb. This is their first step up from Division D into Division C. Right. I think that they're going to be better for it, and I do agree with you that it's not going to be for very much longer that they go winless. And even if they continue winless, I don't see them as the type of team who are just going to take it lying down. They're going to learn from it. They're going to adapt, and they're going to do decently in the division.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, I think one thing in particular is that I don't think that they're the type of team to let this get to them necessarily. They started 1-2 last winter as well. Well, 0-2 right now. They could easily be 1-2 this upcoming week, but they started 1-2 last winter, and they made it all the way to the finals, right? And those weren't, one of those was also a blowout loss, but they only put up 6 points, I think it was. So I'm not worried. If there's a team I'm not worried about when it comes to being 0-2, honestly, it's Jägerbomb. They've been here before. Granted, perhaps they don't have the biggest names on their roster. They don't have the fastest, the biggest players, whatever it may be.
That's not the Jägerbomb style, though.
Exactly. I mean, what they lack, if you will, in terms of star power, I think that they make up for, especially with familiarity. Simon Duchesne's offense. All the guys he's there, he's comfortable with. He knows where they're going to be in terms of their routes, their spacing, whatever it may be. And defensively, again, I harp on it every season, but having that communication, having that familiarity is huge on the defensive side of the ball, where everyone will play a variation of 3-2, 4-1, man, whatever it is, but knowing when to hand a guy off, knowing where physically to be on the field defensively, it's huge, and it's not something that you can really overstate, I don't think. I just want to mention real quick the addition of François Hug. He was there since last year. I do still want to see a bit more from him. I don't know if it's him, if it's Simon Duchesne, if he's just not looking his way. He did finish with 5 TDs, I think it was last season. This season, only 1 catch for 3 yards and that 1 touchdown in 2 games. You're going to need to see François Hug, I think, kind of step up if Jägerbomb are to get back to their winning ways this season. Those are pretty much my thoughts on Jägerbomb. If you have any other quick ones you want to add to them, or
that really touches upon it for the most part. Like, you're talking about someone to step in and lead, other than Delos, other than Marsan or Mauro Paquette. So yeah, François Hug is that natural person to take the job, where you need depth in Division C, where it's not just a question of 1 or 2 great players. You need depth across the board.
Yeah, that's a good point there. So that will do it for this week's edition of Eagle Thinks, as we will move right along then to our previews this week. First on the docket, Texas Bearmans taking on the Nuggets. Who do you have and why?
Texas Bearmans right now, they're essentially on paper a 2-0 team who have lost due to cap issues and are now 1-1. They're very strong. We touched upon it with NoName, but Mike Roy looks to be on the better end of that breakup right now. He's with a better partner, and he's flexing a new relationship. I really like how this team is sort of being led. Kwesi, Gordon Mall, and Khalil Kerr contributing as well. They have the playmakers for Mike Roy to just not have to worry about being behind on defense and can just take those first and second reads, as I mentioned last week. Nuggets tend to struggle. They've had a rough season start. They've been up and down, Division B, Division D, Division 3. This is going to be a rough one for them. It's going to be a true test for Nuggets if they're competitive for the division or not just whether this will be a win or loss, or if they're competitive for this division.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I mean, if we're looking at it now, granted, they did have that week 1 win, 32-6, but it was against going deep, which
also may not be competitive for
exactly. So I mean, I've been there. I mean, we've seen it too. Teams able to kind of pile up on teams that shouldn't really be in the division per se, and then struggling against top talent, which is what you don't. I mean, it doesn't matter what you do against the weaker teams when the playoffs roll around. You have to show that you can actually be able to keep up with them. And I'm not sold on Nuggets just yet when it comes to that, especially coming off that 13-point loss to Smash Bros. Listen, as you mentioned,
Smash Bros again without their quarterback.
Exactly. And listen, I mean, Texas Bearmans, as you mentioned, they've really been killing it since week 1. And I think to add to that, it wasn't just a matter of granted they busted the cap, but I don't think that they even used the player that had really busted the cap in that week.
That was exactly it. Yeah, it was
Jalen
just
Grandison,
while waiting for people to
exactly.
arrive.
So that on paper, fine, it's it's a forfeit, but in reality, it's legit. What that win is. Listen, I honestly expect to see Khalil Kerr and Kwesi Gordon Mall just tear it up and down on both sides of the defense, on both sides of the field rather. I don't really have hope for Nuggets just yet. I have to see a bit more from them before giving them their due, if you will.
Yeah,
at just 1-1, it's still early on in the season. Give me Texas Bearmans for that. Next, the key matchup of the week Backyard Bullies 2-0 taking on the 2-0 Blue Chips. Both these teams have been very impressive so far this season, and we obviously expect them to. Who are you taking?
I don't think that Blue Chips have ever faced a team like Backyard Bullies. Blue Chips struggled in Division B last spring, did really, really well in Division 4B this past winter, and they've just come off of a couple of they came up against the Going Deep team who struggled. This is going to be a real test. Backyard Bullies are stacked from top to bottom. They play well together. They have chemistry. Rich Humes knows where his guys are going to be at all times, and they have a strong rush, which Mitchell just tends to sort of break the rush and will either run downfield or can air the ball out. You have the players who can cover deep and an effective rush that may halt this Blue Chips team. So playing it like it's easy to play it safe, and I'm definitely going to take Backyard Bullies for this one. It would be a big surprise for me if Blue Chips came out with a win.
Yeah, I think. I have to agree. Honestly, I mean, it's
it's feasible.
It is. It's just
we prefer being right.
It's not what I would expect to see, and I mean, for a lot of the points that you touched upon. Listen, I think to add to that, I don't want to take anything away from what Blue Chips have done so far this season because they've been very impressive.
Absolutely.
And it's not your fault if you don't necessarily play a top team week in and week out, and especially having seen what they did to Shamir TDs, who have there's a veteran quarterback there, veteran group of guys putting up 52 points on them.
Blue Chips been playing any of the other 16 or 15 or whatever teams in the division at this point, we would be having a different conversation.
But that being said, I think if we're looking at the specifics in terms of the actual individual matchups, Kevin St. Pierre taking on Jordan Mitchell. If Kevin is smart in this one, which I expect him to be, he won't do what Julien Paiement did and has a tendency to do,
over pursue,
which is to go 100 miles an hour and one cut and he is 20 yards downfield. Against certain quarterbacks, that's very efficient. You go up against a guy like a statue like Simon Dagenet. He's not, Simon Dagenet is not going to move anywhere, right? So definitely get in there, put some pressure on him quickly.
It's all about that shuttle step that he does.
Yeah, that's true. You have to watch out for that. But no, I mean, listen, against a guy like Mitchell, it's contain all the way. Contain, because the second he breaks that contain, that's when the magic happens for them. You know what I mean? That's when he finds it's broken plays. This guy is downfield over here, and he goes up, makes a great catch. So I think Kevin will have not an easy time, but I think he'll do a better job in terms of keeping Mitchell in the pocket than what I'd seen from Pema in the Going Deep game. And the second point, I think, which will be interesting to see, will be the Backyard Bullies' speed and I guess more veteran experience, if you will, in terms of knowing the game in and out, versus the Blue Chip size. That's they tend to depend on that a lot.
The fade is there often.
Exactly. So, and to be honest, I don't know what to expect when it comes to that standpoint. I don't know if even if Blue Chips are able to win those matchups, it seems to me like there's just too much, I think, on the Backyard Bully side in terms of just Rich Humes. It's tough, man. It's just granted, the Blue Chips defense, they're great. They've played great. You're not going to get many picks off of Rich Humes, man. You're not going to get many throws in duress. And even if you do, he's got the talent in there to come up and make those big plays.
So I think the TLDR of this is we respect the Blue Chips, but Backyard Bullies are going to win.
That's essentially it.
And once again, like we touched upon the matchup that you and I agreed or disagreed with last week, we can come back to this and either look like geniuses or laugh at ourselves.
Exactly. So next up here, the last one, Bearskins taking on the Smash Bros. What do you got, Moy?
At this point, barring any absences from Marco and Sasha again, I think that Bearskins look like they would be the clear-cut winners for this one.
It's really tougher with 18 teams to get to find, I think, matchups we can disagree on, because that's essentially it. I mean, they were missing Papich, they're missing Bertoldi, and it seems to me like Neil Edinson is the kind of quarterback who really depends on that familiarity. I know having played against them.
Just played that game, like I can verify that 100% to the point where the Royals D shifted because Neil stopped looking right because he didn't know the guys on his right and he just kept feeding the ball to the guys he knew. It was Neil Deshaun Brophy basically throughout the game.
Yeah, no, Neil has his routes that he runs with Papich. If you've played against Bearskins, you know them. He has his routes with Bertoldi. If you've played against Bearskins, you know them.
So it's a totally different game when they have a full roster.
Exactly. And as we had mentioned, for those not in the know, they were missing those two players, and that's it. He wasn't even what he had stepping in for them. It was still some talent. He did still
Kyle
have
Lebowski as well.
Kyle Lebowski and Sean Brophy, right? But if you're not that familiar, depending on the kind of quarterback that you are, it's not necessarily going to go well. And we saw that in their loss to you guys this week. If they're there, listen, I want to give a quick shout out still to Smash Bros for honestly, I think playing a lot better than what we had expected them, given the fact that they weren't going to have their quarterback for the first 2-3 weeks.
And even on paper, if they did have their quarterback, this is a team that's made the jump. That's
exactly.
a collective of lower division.
It's a bunch of kind of random players coming together, making a team, and they've impressed so far. But that being said, if Bearskins have who they need, there will be some holes to exploit. I'm looking at Pat Lindor's side. I'm just saying, it's there if you know. I'll leave it at that.
No, but he had the deep, right?
Huh?
He has the deep zone.
He has the deep zone well covered. We'll see what is there short, but I'm not going to say any more. GM, your final thoughts here tonight.
I don't know what everyone's complaining about. I really like it here. We get to do our own thing. Aside from parking, like I have no issues with this, and I live debatably, aside from you, the furthest. So
yeah,
I don't know what the issue is with FPF Studios, but I'm okay with it.
All right. I mean, yeah, I'm warming up to it physically, like literally with the lights, and also metaphorically, I guess. But yeah, well, I don't know. We should get some better chairs next week, Ego. What do you think?
You know what we should get?
We're going to fix a lot of stuff in here.
All
This
right,
is week
all right.
one. We got a lot of
I am.
things.
You know
We're
what we should
putting our
get?
faith in
Some
Ego.
tweet-ins. That's what we need.
That would also be true.
It's too late now because we're at the end of our show. But
Yeah, but for next week, though, right? At Eagle FPF, baby. Tweet us in. My final thoughts real quick. I just want to give a quick shout out to Nuggets. I didn't get to see all the team photos, but from what I saw, their jerseys are looking crisp. And I don't care if it is this division or not. The one-speed power jerseys are absolutely atrocious. It looks like a rip-off of Aquaman.
it's really funny because Pease loves them, and he's like, well, maybe that's also because I'm colorblind. I can't really.
I honestly think it's because he's colorblind. I gave him crap for it at the field. I'm giving him crap for it now. No bueno, guys. All right, Aquaman is not even a cool superhero. Like no one looks up to Aquaman. All right, what do you got these scales going on? Garbage. That's what I have to say about that. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you guys next week.